Hey, how's it going, guys? Hey, I'm gonna start this out a little bit more professionally than normal. I'm gonna try some stuff. Make sure you like, follow, if you like the stuff, hit the bell, whatever. I'm also gonna be giving away some free copies of Blood Meridian at the end of this video. Find out how. I'm gonna be talking about Blood Meridian because it's a book. It's probably the best book I've ever read, and it kind of made me think about the way that I can consume content. Um, for quite a while now, I've been super into video essays. As if you're watching this, you probably are too, because you like listening to people ramble and go on for forever about a thing that is supposedly super cool. What I've recognized after reading that book is that some art can be so transformative to your experience of it that listening to somebody else summarize the plot or discuss the artistic merits does not even close to measure up to actually experiencing that work of art for yourself. Um, I originally got introduced to this book by Wendigoon, fantastic YouTuber. I love him to death. So this is not a criticism on him, and in fact, he even recommended at the start of his video, hey, if you haven't read this, go check it out before you watch the video, unless you don't give a shit. Um, I did, so I went ahead and got the book, read it, and then watched his video to follow along. And there were some really cool things that I noticed as I watched his video. Some distinctions, some different takeaways of his interpretation and my own individual experience. One of those things is just that, like, you get to have your own interpretation of a work of art when you experience it for yourself. And you can have little differences uh, throughout reading that maybe you didn't hear anybody else talk about when you get into this habit of watching reviews or critiques of these works of art, and you hear somebody else fully immerse themselves in that work of art and then try to explain it to you. What I'm beginning to recognize is that their takeaways are often not completely, but at least partially different from my own. For example, something that I'm going to try and be spoiler free about this because I definitely want people to go read this book. I want them to do it so much that I'm actually going to be giving away copies of the book. I'm going to figure out the semantics of that after. Um, but for those of you who might have checked out some reviews for Blood Meridian, a lot of critics say the same thing. They'll say that Judge Holden, who is a prominent character in the book, is clearly a representation of the devil or of Satan or of evil or he's a god of war in a sense, and I don't really agree of their assessments on this. I do recognize that in the text there are characters that will directly cite that, or that there are specific acts that take place in the book that mirror Dante's Inferno, or there's certain resemblances, but I don't think that McCarthy's intention was that. I enjoyed this book so much that I went out of my way to study McCarthy more because again, like, it is such a transformative experience to read that book. Just for You can't really truly describe it and give somebody the emotions that that book gives you through discussing it, but I found it to be so transformative for myself that I wanted to learn everything I could about this author. And in an interview that he did, and he didn't do a lot, he spent so much time talking about famous scientists, specifically in the world of physics. He was very, very fascinated about these geniuses and these brilliant minds, and that often led to them studying physics or pursuit of physics. So much so that it begins to dawn on you after you've read this great work that I think, in my opinion, and this is why it's important that you go read the book for yourself. I think that Judge Holden was not a representation of the devil, but he was a representation of the entropy of the universe. And I think that so much of the book stands to represent that through the analogs of um, humanity and its decay and its rise and fall, but that Judge Holden stands to represent that ever existing entropy of the universe and of chaos. You know, I do think it's almost like a character flaw that he represents what he says as war, of the ever existence of war, but through a lot of the actions that he commits in the book, it seems more like he's a representation of chaos. There's specifically towards the end of the book, and if you do read it or have read it, you'll recognize what I'm talking about. But before almost everything falls apart and Judge Holden is left in charge of this place, when characters return to it, it is in complete chaos. It is not this warlike society or this with nobody blocking his ability to lead. You would expect, if he is such a man of war, that he would have a greater representation in the kind of society that he would build for himself. But it is complete chaos, completely devoid of structure, and a couple of the influences that I think were so personal to McCarthy. A lot of people will talk about Kierkegaard. A lot of people will discuss specifically the guy that is like the real life guy that's the inspiration for Judge Holden. That obviously I don't think that all of his personality traits came through in that, but I think that they were exacerbated in what he stood for in Entropy. But the real life guy that was actually in the Glanton gang, obviously he was the physical representation of this guy and the inspiration based on the journal Cormac McCarthy read that inspired this whole story. But anyway, I really like this book. It's my favorite book that I've read probably ever. I just want to encourage you guys to go enjoy more media, specifically because I think that through doing that directly and not just, my bad habit of watching essays on it or watching somebody else talk about it, you get so much more of a fuller experience through those things. And I think it's a problem that we run into now, that everybody wants to condense their experiences into as short of a time frame as possible to feel like they're getting more bang for their buck. And I think you miss out on a lot when you do that. For the first 3 people that leave a comment on the video and give it a like, I will be making sure that you get a copy of Blood Meridian, that you can enjoy the book for yourself, because I really need people to talk to about it. Once again, like the video, subscribe, and check out the next one. All right.